Good evening, everybody. Can you let me know if you can hear me? Yes? Loud enough? Okay. Thank you very much. I'd like to welcome everyone to our annual meeting and ask you if you would please stand and salute the flag. Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're going to really have to stick to our schedule this evening because it's rather full, and we do have a special speaker tonight as our program, and you'll all be able to ask as many questions as you like. First, we'll start with old business. Patty Hamill will read the minutes of the last meeting unless somebody would like to make a motion to have them waived this evening.
I move to have them waived.
Does anyone second that motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Opposed? Okay, it's carried. The financial report. Does anyone have a report from Scott? Do you have Scott's report?
He did not email it to me.
But it will be on the website. Oh.
It's changed from last month because none of us got our expenses and receipts to him. So
Right.
He hasn't put out any more minutes. He may, any more money rather. He may have taken in some membership dues.
All right. Well, then we are going to go to new business. And you'll see that you got a handout. I think you all got a handout, which is a resident survey. I'd like you all to take that with you, or if you want to fill it out here and leave it, that would be greatly appreciated. But right now, this is our annual meeting, which is kind of a strange annual meeting because it's a brief annual. It's only 6 months. And so it's, I guess we would have gotten even more done if we had a whole year. So I'm just going to give you what we have accomplished this year. And I need to put this down because I need two hands for a moment, at least. Sure. Pretty much what I'm telling you, though, is going to be in your mailbox because it's part of the membership renewal campaign. So that goes out to everyone, as you know. So, dear residents, thank you for your ongoing support of the HBCA. As a result of community involvement, we have been able to address several important issues affecting Hampton Bays this year. The Southampton Town Board recognizes the merits of the community's opinions on issues such as installing the best system in a residential area. We are looking forward to the demolition of the Bel Air Cove Motel, and we're hopeful that the property will revert to a passive park. And there's also been welcome news that the Regal Theater has a chance of remaining open in Hampton Bays. Everyone has seen the stories in the Southampton press, and there are so many people who have been saying for years, we don't want to see this, we want a movie. So I think possibly we won that one, and I'm pretty sure that the best system might be the same situation since it's got a moratorium. So the moratorium could slip into reverting the zoning. Anyway, your board here works tirelessly to shed light on issues that negatively affect our town, and we work toward finding solutions. We are a group of diverse volunteers with complementary skills and expertise who work together for the good of Hampton Bays. We plan to research grant funding in the hope of luring state and federal funds to our hamlet to help transform aspirations into reality. With the participation of our members, we're able to achieve success in making a significant difference in community issues. And under the banner of the Civic Association, your voice gets heard. So please keep giving us information on what issues are affecting everyone so we can see what we can do to help. Following, I have a list of things that we are going to try to look at going forward that impact the quality of life issues. So these are some of them. Nothing's carved in stone. It's what we can get to. identifying an appropriate site for a sewage treatment facility, addressing our water quality issues, enforcing code regulations, addressing parking in public lots and streets, interfacing with the county on traffic solutions, revitalizing the business district, making improvements to Good Ground Park, establishing cultural and performing arts programs. So I really look forward to everyone's continued participation. And again, if you fill out the form that you were given, that helps us with this list of what's the priority. What should we look at first? So that's pretty much it. That's pretty much the report that I wanted to give you on what we've done and what we'd like to do going forward. Back in March, I also created a list of issues, and I gave it to some people, but I didn't have enough copies. So we've already finished 3 of those issues on the front page, so I'm pretty proud of that. And if anybody would like a copy of this, leave me your name with an email, and I will email you a copy. And there are committees for just about everything I mentioned that we're trying to work on. So I feel very positive about the activities that this organization can actually accomplish for Hampton Bays. So, and there are no more pages I need to tell you. In any case, I would like to thank the nominating committee once again for all of the hard work that they've done putting this together. Liz Hook, Pat McKee, and Mary Ann Patrick. And you've all gotten your ballots to complete, and I would like to just turn this over to the nominating committee at this time to make their announcements.
Thanks, Geraldine. Hi, everyone. As Geraldine said, the nominating committee this year consisted of Pat McKee, Liz Hook, and me, Mary Ann Patrick. We ask for your attention, and please hold your questions till the end. Thank you. Is there any member, paid member, who has not received a ballot tonight? Everybody has a ballot, okay. The current board was appointed after many of the newly elected board members resigned, with the exception of Scott, the treasurer, and 2 of the directors. The former president, Maria Holt, appointed Geraldine as president. Tonight, we make a fresh start, following the process of elections, recreating a uniformed procedure for future elections. The Hampton Bays Civic Association bylaws state that the board consists of 11 directors, with 4 out of the 11 serving as officers. We originally had 14 candidates. However, 3 candidates withdrew. Several hours ago, we received notice that one of the current candidates also withdrew. Her name is Georgina Fiordialisi. So her name shows up on the ballot, but we will not be checking her name off tonight. So unfortunately, we are down to 10 candidates, but 4 of those 10 candidates will serve as officers. If you look at your ballot, you will see on the top section where it says Board of Directors that the 11 names appear. All you have to do is put a check mark in front of each name. What's more important is at the bottom, there are 4 officer positions. Tonight, we will reintroduce all the candidates, and when we do that, we will ask if any of them are running for office. And then after that, they will be able to get up and address the membership with their qualifications and why they would like to hold office. So now we're going to ask each candidate to state their name again and let us know what office they are interested in running for. Unfortunately, Due to the date change, Scott, who's our current treasurer and running again for treasurer, could not be here. So Liz is going to read Scott's bio so that you know his background, okay? So without further ado, let's just have everybody state their name and whether or not they're also running for an officer position. Thank you. You could just pass the mic.
My name is Phil Metzger. I am not running for an officer position, just running for director. This is my first time.
Hi, everybody, and I want to thank you all for coming out tonight. It's in this stormy night. I'm Ray D'Angelo, and I am running for vice president.
Hi, everybody. I'm Bridget Marr, and I am not running for any position.
I'm Marion Bowden. I'm not running for any position.
I'm Geraldine Spinella, and I am running for president.
Hi, I'm Liz Hook, and I am running for president.
I'm Chrissy Millenhausen. I am not running for an office.
Gail Lombardi, I'm not running for any office. Patty Hamill, I am the interim secretary, and I would love to continue in that role.
Okay. First, we'll have Liz read Scott's bio. He is running for the treasurer, and right now it looks like we do not have anyone else running for that position.
Okay. So Scott Bolster has been a Hampton-based resident for 10 years. He was on the HBCA board for 5 years, the last year and a half as treasurer. His primary responsibilities have been the civic email blasts, the civic website maintenance and postings. He maintains the civic membership and contact database. Among his accomplishments are that he oversaw the creation and implementation of the new HBCA website in 2022. He modernized the HBCA membership management and increased capabilities by implementing Member Planet in 2022. So the new capabilities include online member renewals, event management tracking, and ability to accept online donations. As treasurer, he created updated reporting processes to better track ongoing expenses, also put together an online expense reimbursement form to securely capture the documentation needed to quickly reimburse expenses and manage them. And even though he's not opposed, there's nobody else running, I will just say that those of us on the board who have worked with Scott, he is amazing. He's done a remarkable job, and we are really lucky to have him as treasurer.
We'll now hear from Patty, who's running for secretary.
Everybody, I'm Patty Hamill. I have been interim secretary since I think March, so I've been at it for 6 months. It was a learning curve. However, I got a lot of support, and the responsibilities of the position really come very naturally to me. I did a lot of administrative support work in my life before retirement. So I kind of, fell into the responsibilities. I am enjoying it. I think I'm good at it. I get the occasional pat on the back. It's minutes, it's the press release, it's forms creation, it's robocalls, it's post office runs, co-signing checks, and like I said, a lot of administrative responsibilities that fit very nicely with my experience. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Ray. few words?
I'll keep it brief. Again, I want to thank you all for coming out. It's a very stormy night. Just to go a brief bio, I'm 73 years old. I'm a retired 65 officer. I've been coming out here since I'm about 13 years of age. Been living out here permanently since 2009, 10. And I've always been a member of the Civic. I always was a member of the CAC, Citizens Advisory Committee. I was chairman of the Citizens Advisory Committee from 2017 to the 19. And really, my interest really has always been, I pointed this out to all of you, that we do not have a village government here. We're not incorporated. And because of that, I've always advocated that we needed a very strong civic association that makes sure we got what we needed and also make sure that the town government understood what we wanted. And I think now, after we had a change in management last year, we're almost there now. I mean, our work is not quite done, but we're almost there. And I'm hopeful for the future. I mean, we have a lot of issues coming up. And we still continue with the best issue, which is not resolved. Bellwood Cove is not resolved. For example, the housing project that Mr. Kiola wants to build down here, which is overwhelming for our community, is not resolved. We don't want it. I don't want it. I know a lot of people don't want it. So with your help, and we all work together and get this done. And I just want to say this, that we live in Hampton Bays, and it's a beautiful place. We have beautiful ocean beaches and bay beaches. But that's not the only thing that makes this place special. It's you guys. We're working and middle-class people. You guys are all really good. I love everybody in the Hampton. I could have lived in Sag Harbor, but those aren't my people. So thank you very much for being with you all. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Ray. Joe?
So I'm one of those odd litigators who gets very nervous speaking in public. So it's quite an experience when I'm in front of a judge. So I wrote out my comments, and bear with me while I read them. So I've been a homeowner in Hampton Bays since 2004, and I've lived here full-time since 2014. I'm an attorney who started my career as an environmental lawyer, and I have been using that education and experience to address the many challenges we've been facing here in Hampton Bays. In 2016, I was appointed to the board of the Civic, and I remained on the board for 2 years. The lessons I learned during that time convinced me to resign from the board and work on the issues facing Hampton Bays with a small group of like-minded people: Ray, Gail, Marion, Mary, and Doreen. It slowly became clear to me that some members of the previous board of directors were more interested in aligning with the town board of developers rather than asking members of the Civic what they wanted. The evidence of that was very clear when the town released its plan for the downtown overlay district, and it differed substantially from the plan that was presented to us in 2016. Instead of pushing back on new zoning that would allow apartment buildings in our downtown, 248 additional apartments and their corresponding cars, and a sewage treatment plant wedged in between Good Ground Cemetery and Good Ground Park, the Civic supported the town. During a Civic meeting about the DOD, me and my like-minded colleagues, we were called a small but vocal group of dissidents. So I guess we were on our way to the gulag in Russia. At that point, a concerted effort was made to silence us because we opposed the plans by the town and Mr. Kiola. Questions we submitted during Civic meetings were never asked. We were never allowed to speak during meetings. We were effectively shut down and shut out for years. The surest way to get sued is to ignore people. People who feel like they have not been treated fairly will resort to litigation because that is the last resort they have. And that's exactly what we did, because we were completely ignored by the town government and our own civic association. Gail Lombardi filed a lawsuit to annul the DOD, and against all odds won. Without her courage in filing that lawsuit at her own expense and completely by herself, Good Ground Park would now be under construction with apartment buildings and a sewage treatment plant just a couple of blocks from Montauk Highway. Two friends and I filed a lawsuit to annul the plan to build condos or a motel on the site of the Bel Air Cove Motel. Our lawsuit was dismissed because the judge determined it was premature because no site plan had been prepared yet. But the lawsuit signaled to the town that we are ready, willing, and able to follow up with another lawsuit if such a site plan was filed. Last year, in August 2022, at a civic meeting held in the high school auditorium, everything changed. We dissidents drafted a one-page fact sheet about the DOD, listing the facts that the town and the civic would not discuss. Through word of mouth and distribution of reliable, factual information about what the town was intending to do with our downtown, we succeeded in getting more than 500 Hampton Bays residents to show up and fight town hall. For the first time, our little group of dissidents was joined by a crowd large enough for the town to be forced to pay attention. We dissidents then decided it was time for the civic to represent us, the people of Hampton Bays, instead of town government. We fought to be heard at civic meetings, even when that entailed shouting and arguing, and I know many people here were very upset by that. But having faced 7 years of being shut down, dismissed and ignored, there was no other way to get our point across, and none of us were very comfortable doing it. When half of the prior board of directors resigned last year, we worked very hard to return the civic to its democratic roots and to give its membership the voice it lost over the last decade. I'm running for president because I am committed to keeping the civic as a true voice of all the people of Hampton Bays, and not just the civic's board of directors or its president. And I will use my experience with Town Hall to ensure that we keep pressure on Town Hall to do what is right for Hampton Bays. That experience taught me not to believe everything we were being told, because there were times when facts were blatantly misrepresented. It also taught me to question whether our elected officials are working for our benefit or for the benefit of developers. The town board is very good at handling us, and we have to be very vigilant to make sure that is not happening. To that end, when Ray D'Angelo raised the alarm about the BEST facilities, I researched the law to see what legal means we could use to stop the projects. I drafted letters to the town board and to the editor of the Southampton Press. I attended planning board and town board meetings to voice my opposition on behalf of myself and the civic to allowing BEST facilities in residential neighborhoods. In connection with the Bel Air Cove Hotel property, before the waterfront development plan was adopted by the town board, I attended every town and civic meeting that discussed the plan and voiced my opposition. When the town board attempted to shut down any discussion of using the property for a passive park, I sent letters to the town board and the Southampton Press opposing the town's actions. I distributed documents we gathered in the course of our lawsuit to inform people who live in Hampton Bays that literally no other government entity supported the town's plan to develop condos or a motel on that site. Among those documents was the staff report of the Suffolk County Planning Department, which recommended against doing anything but a passive park for a number of reasons, including that it is in a FEMA flood zone. I attended a meeting of the committee formed by Rick Martell to discuss potential uses of the site and distributed that document to others in the meeting who had not been apprised of that report. In connection with the DOD, we drafted the one-page fact sheet about what the town and Mr. Kiola were really planning for the downtown. I attended forums on the DOD hosted by the Southampton Press and town hall public meetings to voice my opposition to the aspects of the plan that would increase the density of our downtown to unbelievable proportions and situate a sewage treatment plant only a couple of blocks from Montauk Highway. When we obtained a copy of the town board's contract with Nelson Pope and Voorhees to prepare an updated environmental analysis of the DOD, I read through it and discovered the infamous instruction to portray the opposition as NIMBYs. I wrote a letter to the Southampton Press voicing my anger, which sparked a very public backlash. That contract provision was the first public demonstration of what we had been experiencing all along, a PR campaign designed to discredit the dissidents. In It's almost over, sorry. I am providing pro bono services to the Good Ground Cemetery Association to oppose any potential application for a variance by the town or Mr. Kiola to build a sewage treatment plant on land that is too close to the cemetery. The goal of my presidency would be to give the voice back to our members. I pledge that I would not take a position publicly on behalf of the Civic that is not first approved by the membership and the board of directors. I am not interested in promoting my own agenda. I am interested in having the people of Hampton Bays take back control of their hamlet and stop the town board from continuing to use our hamlets as a dumping ground for all unpopular projects. If we work together and show unity in numbers, we can change what is happening to our hamlet. But we can't accomplish that if there are personal or hidden agendas. I promise you, I have neither. Thank you.
Okay, I didn't write a book, so I can't, I can't top that. But I will say, without even starting what I was going to say about me, the fact that the people that you hear speaking, that you know are the activist group, the reason that I appointed them to the board in the first place was because of their skills legally, research, and just being on top of issues and staying in the mix. So what they have to say is exactly what they are doing, and they have done, and it is effective. So I have to say that we have such an agenda of issues coming up that not everybody will have the same opinion on everything. Don't ever think that you can't say something because we might not agree with you. Because the point is being able to talk to people, negotiate, come to middle ground somewhere. If everything is always no, you'll never get anything done. And if everything is always yes, half the town will be unhappy. So you need to have alternative solutions for any type of different problem. These are not normal problems. You know, most of the world has a sewer system. So, I mean, we have issues that are not normal issues. So it's a difficult thing to work on. In any case, I have no experience with the sewer system, I have to tell you that. What I have, though, to tell you that I basically have been a financial advisor for 40 years. I've helped all of my clients run really difficult problems that they needed to solve financially, whether it be a mortgage or a child's college education. So that's where I say that I'm okay with negotiating on anything, because that's what I've always had to do. Dig up information, solve the problem, negotiate, come up with a solution. And that's what you can apply to anything in your life. It can be a civic, it can be a school, it can be your family. But you need to have some sort of skills in the background to do this. I'm not a lawyer, but I am in finance. So I think everybody needs to think about where do we get the money to do these things? And that's why I mentioned grants. The original resume that I had put in was basically that I am a full-time resident of Hampton Bays. I belong to the CAC, the Citizen Advisory Committee, in 21, 22, and 23 this year until I became president. I resigned. The Civic, the Beautification, the Historical Society. If there's anything in Hampton Bays that I can join, I join because I love it. I love this town. And I just think it deserves better than it's gotten, and I think it will get that. The reason that I'm president is because I was appointed to be president, and I jumped right into it, and I did the best that I could do this year so far. And I would like to keep doing that. I have so many ideas, I can't even put them all in writing, and I certainly don't want to bore you with everything. I already gave you my little list idea. Anyone wants to see a copy of that list? Happy to send it to you. Because when I say that I'm going to work on something, I actually really work on it. So, and I do have a full-time job, and this is the second full-time job. There's a lot you have to do if you care about your town. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much, everyone. Now we'll just proceed with the voting. So I just want to explain to you that at the bottom, where it says officers, we do know that 3 of the officers are running unopposed. So it would be Treasurer Scott Bolster, who could not be here tonight, Patty Hamill, is running for secretary, Ray D'Angelo for vice president. And the choice that we'll have tonight is Geraldine Spinella and Liz Hook as your choice for president. So if everybody could fill out their forms and fold them in half when they're through. We're going to pass around some baskets. Just put your ballot in it. And then Pat and I will go off and we will count the ballots, which will definitely be most likely just for the two presidential candidates. Thank you very much for your attention tonight. I really appreciate it. And thanks for voting. Could you just pass it along to anyone else who hasn't? Okay, it's just four write-ins.
So, yeah, they're bringing a basket.
to ask any? So can I just give some updates on our committee reports? We figured we'll do. Okay, so while we're waiting for Jay to come, can I just give some committee updates to the report? So we have two committees, myself and Mary Ann. She had multitasks. So Mary Ann, myself, and Mary Payson was on the bylaw committee. So hopefully, since there was the elections and there's a new board, hopefully next month we'll update the bylaws. We'll have an updated draft and everybody could hopefully vote on them next month. We'll present them to the new board. And the second thing is, I let the ball drop a little bit, but my density committee is really robust. We have really a lot of great people on it. We have Linda and Bob Wells, who are both attorneys from Florida. And we have Lucas, as also an attorney. We have the Duprees. Neil, my partner, is on it. So we have been working, gathering information on what adversely affects this community with any increased density. And we've really come up with some good data. Actually, I'm reviewing the best information, because I've spent some time on that. There's a lot of good data on InBESS, and some of the information carries over, because they talk about environmental inequities, like why Hampton Bays is, discriminated against environmentally, and why a municipality would put that into a hamlet like Hampton Bays. And I'm not an attorney, obviously. Liz is the attorney in our group, but there's a lot of case law about discrimination against about hamlets like ours. So we will hopefully, have it in time, a draft report that if the town proposes either accessory apartment law that adversely affects us, or proposes a housing project either through the CPF monies or through, I call it Kiolaville, where we have hundreds of apartments in our downtown, we'll have the data to hopefully go to the town board and, at least have a business case to dispute it. So that's the stuff we're working on, the two committees. I just wanted to give you guys an update. We haven't forgotten about it. Thanks. And I don't know, does the cultural, the movie theater committee want to give a report? No? She's shaking her head. Okay. For the movie theater committee, or both, okay.
I don't really have a lot to say. Oh, you have to speak into the microphone because it's being... You won't be on the camera, though.
We've been looking for a venue that would work for having some sort of cultural events. Particularly would like to get some sort of theater, local community theater going. We've looked at several places. St. Rita's has space, but they won't rent it. The Methodists have space, but it's overloaded. But we had some possibilities. But the music store, the music and art store in the middle of Hampton Bays, has agreed to let us use their back. There's a little auditorium in the back. So that's really what we're looking at, and hopefully we can, over time, get it organized enough that we could have maybe a one-act play or a evening of karaoke or whatever, so that people have a place to go. But more importantly, we would like to get some young people involved, particularly in the theater part. We would like to have maybe improv, a lot of different things. There are a lot of people in this group that are involved in theater and will be incredibly valuable. We'll also eventually need all the backstage people and the costumers, et cetera. But that's a little bit down the road. But that's as far as we've gotten. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there any other committee here, Water or Bel Air? No? We did have one of our members on that committee working on promoting the movie issue, because we wanted to be absolutely 100% sure that the theater is staying open. And if anybody here in this room can help us get a phone number for the property owner, we would love it. Walter Morris is his name. He is a real estate property owner, and I can't seem to get him on the phone at this point. I'm getting a real estate company, and we just want to nail down the fact that he is going to give that lease back to the theater so we can stay happy about something. Did you get any other information? No. Well, you have to. Talk about going to town hall.
Okay. With the mic. Okay. I've been working on the movie theater. I'm not connected with the culture committee. And I did write a letter, which I have not sent yet, to Mr. Schneiderman and the board. But I had written to Mr. Morris. I was not able to get his phone number. If anybody here can do it, that would be wonderful. We all support the movie theater. We all hope it's going to happen, especially Jim, and I really, really hope that it's going to happen. The problem is that we do not know what the plan Mr. Morris has. He might do the CVS. We're hoping and praying that he goes for Regal. Cineworld is supporting Regal at this moment in time, but this is not a done deal. So if everybody could keep going to the movies, not every night, maybe every other night, okay?
Thank you, Dolores. Well, this is the first time we've ever had time left. Well, we still have a little bit of time left. We are waiting for the ballot counters to come out with a total, and then our program will start. And we've never had this issue where we had time with nothing happening. It's amazing.
Start the program.
So, no, I see them coming out right now. Drum roll, drum roll. This is working.
I would just like to give a special thank you to Eileen McFallon, who's helped us tonight, being our greeter and then taking over. So thank you, Eileen.
Oh, you have to talk into the microphone.
Wait, microphone.
Geraldine, 14 votes, Liz, 47, and Ray, 1.
Hey. Well, congratulations. So you can work on the list. Thank you. Congratulations to everyone. So this is the last time that I have to run any meetings. I would like to then, at this point, we'll introduce our supervisor. Jay Schneiderman is here this evening, and he's been a familiar face at our meetings for years, but he's not running this year, so we don't know where he will decide to put his talents to work next. So we're welcoming this evening to have him share his thoughts where he thinks Hampton Bays will arrive on the pathway to the future of Hampton Bays. Mr. Supervisor.
Does he want to sit or stand?
He may want to sit here. Would you like to sit or stand?
Right.
I
guess center.
Charles, where would be the best seat for him?
He sort of set up here.
Patty. Here, come here, Jack.
Right here.
Jay, I'll get up.
Sit, Marianne. I'll stand between you. It's fine.
Let me just move all the stuff, and then you can
May this be the toughest decision tonight.
Yes,
What do I say?
it's very tough.
First of all, let me congratulate the winners. And thank you, Geraldine, for your leadership of the Civic. Okay. Good evening, everybody. I guess I'm here representing the evil town of Southampton. No, we're not so bad. I promise you, we're not so bad. And I'm also joined by my colleague on the board, Councilman Martell, who was Southampton Press's Man of the Year, and also your Grand Marshal for your parade. So first, the most recent news was there was a local state of emergency starting Thursday morning in this area. I had gotten a call from Highway Superintendent Charles McCardle around 7:30 on Thursday morning that a breach had formed on Dune Road, what he described as a bad breach on Dune Road. So we immediately went into action. I called the county for assistance at his request. Already the county chief engineer was down there examining this river that was forming from the ocean to the bay and starting to cut this ravine right adjacent to a house that's an abandoned house on stilts just to the west of Tiana Beach. So sort of, you know, where, what's the name of that, Sunbar Beach or something? There's a little beach, Sandbar Beach. So right, sort of very close to that, there's a little yellow hotel, I think, next to that, and then there's this home. Went over there. We started mobilizing a lot of sand, and there were trucks coming in from everywhere and payloaders with the county's assistant. County Executive Balone was terrific, and we were able to bring in awful lot of material very quickly and shore that area up. I became, this was, Hurricane Lee, though it was passing pretty far to our east. The wake from that storm, that, churning low pressure zone was pushing 14-foot waves our way. I was becoming increasingly concerned about the east end of Dune Road, out by Oakland's. If you know where the commercial dock is, literally right across from the commercial dock, that area has been getting thinner and thinner. Even though we had a massive federal project pretty recently that put hundreds of thousands of yards of sand out there, because of the dynamics in that area, it amplifies the wave energy, and it just comes in and it scoops out the sand and it pushes back. It ends up by Ponquag Beach, but it's been very hard to keep sand in that location. So if you actually go there, and you can go out by the inlet and you can park and walk along the beach, if you actually go out by the dune, that dune is only as wide as this little section here, from this wall to that, metal line. It's very, very narrow. It's not nearly strong enough to protect us in a hurricane. And of course, if that washes out, it's not long before Dune Road washes out and Oakland's becomes on an island. So we have the commercial dock there. There's Sundays by the bay. So it's an area, obviously, we can't afford to lose. It could create a real problem for the inland here, too. So we stockpiled sand there. Hurricane season is not over. Remember, Superstorm Sandy was right around Halloween. I think it was October 29th. We are vulnerable. There is no doubt that we're vulnerable. If we have to, we can build something to buttress that dune right on Dune Road if there's another storm event. There is a long-term plan. It's called FIMP. It's Fire Island, FI, MP, Montauk Point. It started out as a reformulation study. It's an old study. It's been around pretty much as long as I've been alive. So, and I'm here 61 years. And it started out as a big study of Long Island's coastline. Originally, there was plans by the Army Corps of Engineers to do all kinds of structures, you know, jetties, the groins they call them. And, through the years, the plan morphed as we learned more about coastal dynamics. To today, it's really just about elevating buildings and rebuilding the beaches with sand, natural sand. You take a dredge, these are big dredges, out in the ocean, and they pump sand for weeks or months. They rebuild that beach. It wasn't until Superstorm Sandy that this project actually got funded. It's a $1 billion project for, you know, basically Suffolk County. There's sand going to Montauk, there's sand going to Hampton Bays, there's sand going to West Hampton, to Quogue, East Quogue. There's a lot of sand. We're still about a year and a half away from seeing that project. When we do, and it's 100% federal funded, 100%. So you'll see a very wide beach there, and this is a 30-year plan. So when it starts to wash away, every 3 years, they're coming back and adding more sand to replenish it. There is a local share on the ongoing project, but it's not being paid for by the taxpayers of Hampton Bays. So you're off the hook on that one. There's several erosion control districts that the oceanfront property owners will be paying in most cases. So that's a small share. The state will pay a big share, and the federal government pays a big share. So I just kind of wanted to update you on that Hurricane Lee and the impacts. I'm still very concerned. If you can hold off on questions, because there's a lot I want to talk about, and I'm sure there'll be lots of questions. But I did want you to share my concerns about the vulnerability of Dune Road. It is very fragile at the east end. The house we shored up is, I think, going to be fine, but that area to the east is concerning. So I want to take you back a little bit. 8 years ago is when I first ran for supervisor. You know, I was county legislator before that for 12 years until I hit my term limits. Before that, I was actually East Hampton Town Supervisor, so this is the end of my 24th year in elected office. And 7 more years I was on the chairman of the zoning board out in East Hampton. I grew up sort of in the hotel business out in Montauk, very familiar with tourism. And so when I was first running for Hampton, for supervisor here in Southampton, knocking on doors 8 years ago, I heard a lot of the same things. It was a pretty constant voice. People were saying my property values in Hampton Bays are going down, but elsewhere in Southampton they're going up. Our taxes keep going up. There's overcrowding in houses. Nobody's investing in downtown. The infrastructure is not being maintained, like the Ponquag Pavilion. There's flooding on Dune Road. People really wanted change. They wanted change, and they wanted a different future for Hampton Bays. And so I got elected, went to work on a plan that I thought would sort of change the trend. I said, okay, how do we make property values go up? Okay, we're going to address some of these issues of overcrowding. We'll strengthen code enforcement. We'll make it easier for people to complain. We created this whole online system where people could lodge code enforcement complaints. We need to invest in infrastructure so that people will invest in their properties. The greatest asset to me in Hampton Bays was the ocean, besides its people, as Ray pointed out. But the ocean, you have miles of pristine ocean beaches. If we could have at least a really beautiful beach pavilion at Ponquag, that would help support property values. If we could get rid of the chronic flooding, they had been trying for years on Dune Road. It was impassable. Any high tide, forget about lunar, like big high tides. Any high tide, that road was impassable. So I worked on getting $1 million to elevate Dune Road and get some of that flooding taken care of. We invested in Good Ground Park with the amphitheater, trying to create some, a cultural venue here, built the bathroom, built the playground there. And, of course, I felt like it was an underutilized asset along the canal with the water, the marine park. The marine park is a beautiful park. It's a waterfront park. Nobody goes there. So we fixed the parking lot. We added a parking lot. We built the pavilion. If you haven't been down to the Maritime Park on the canal, you should go. There was also other issues plaguing Hampton Bays. The water. Oh my, yeah, the water. People were like, there's no water pressure. My water is rusty colored, right? Now, it turns out that the town oversees the water utility in Hampton Bays. Only place in town where we do that. We're in charge of your water. Now, I have a background in science. Some of you may know I was a chemistry major. I was a science teacher. That's my master's is in science education. But I never run a water utility. But I was very concerned not just about the low pressure and the discoloration, but these emerging contaminants that were being detected in the water. These perfluorinated compounds like PFAS and PFOA that are associated with firefighting foams. And they're also really toxic. They're really toxic and they're in the water supply. So we got granular activated carbon filtration, which removes 100% of those contaminants at Field 1, which is not far from here. On the discolored water, we instituted a new flushing program where we would flush the pipes much more often. We put in, on the main field that was introducing the discolored, the iron, we put in an iron manganese filtration system to pull that out. And so we wouldn't have to use these chemicals to hide it, which are these sequestering agents that it was still there, but they're full of phosphate, and that phosphate ends up in the bay, which is a problem because phosphate is a nutrient that increases algae. We also put in a water main, a new water main under Shinnecock Bay to Dune Road because twice it broke. Twice the water main, which sat above the bay bottom, was old, had a lot of pressure on it. Twice it snapped. So we put in a new water main that we can rely on, buried deep beneath the bay bottom. And to address some of the pressure issues east of the Shinnecock Canal, we also directionally drilled underneath the Shinnecock Canal, came up at Mashut Park, and provided additional water for the east side. I love this Hampton Bays community, and I get a thrill every time I ride over the Ponquag Bridge and I see the baymen out there, I see the water sparkling, I see the miles of beaches. It really is an incredibly beautiful place. And I have tried over my 8 years to help Hampton Bays in every way I could. And if you look now 8 years later, property values for the most part have doubled or tripled. Instead of going down, they've actually gone up. I looked at the tax rate, overall tax rate over those same 8 years, 10% lower than I took office. That's a pretty significant lowering of your tax rate. The school population was going up and up. It's been going down and projected to go down even further. That's good. It takes pressure off. We took some of the historic buildings like the Life Saving Station, rebuilt it. It's beautiful. Liaison Hat Shop, Canoe Place Chapel. We're going to do the same thing with the old dining hall at the Girl Scout camp. If you haven't been to the Girl Scout camp, it is a gem. These beautiful cliffs overlooking Peconic Bay. We rebuilt the stairs that go down. It was a really great project. The town board, it's not just me, we all believe in Hampton Bays. When I listened to some of the talk earlier, it sounds like the town board is your enemy. We're not your enemy. We are all public servants trying to do good things. We're not in the pocket of anyone, right? So this has been, for me, a great honor. It's my last year. I have only a few months left. I think we've got some good things done for Hampton Bays. I hope so. I know some of you use this room for the senior program. We do a nutrition program here. We bought this building. We didn't even own this building. We rented it. I made sure this would be here permanently. So the board acquired this, and in doing so, we acquired the church next door because it was the same ownership, which is no longer a church. Now it's our public safety because I wanted code enforcement centered here in Hampton Bays because that was a lot of the issues. So I believe Hampton Bays has been moving in the right direction. Now, I want to talk a little bit about some of the issues that have come up recently. And let's start with Bel Air. So, Bel Air, a lot of people complained about Bel Air when I was running for office. And they said, there's a lot of kids going to the school, it doesn't produce much property taxes, it's a slum, people are gonna get hurt if there's a fire. They had a lot of code violations. It went up for sale, actually, and I was hoping somebody from the private sector would buy it and invest in that property. It sat, it languished for a long time. I had the town appraise it. We got a number of what it's worth. I think we did 2 appraisals. And then I had negotiated a deal for the town to buy it below our appraised value, which was great. We acquired it under an urban renewal plan to redevelop the property to help support our tourism economy. Now, why is that a good idea? Well, one is the private sector fixes the property up, tears it down, tears the old pool down, the old building down. They're required to move it further from the water, fix the bulkhead, put it on a sanitary system that removes nitrogen. You create some jobs, some tax revenue, support the restaurant next door and the market across the street. There were some really positive things, I thought. It was a $7 million investment to go from a 22-unit hotel, which had become an apartment building, a low-income apartment building, to a 12-unit boutique hotel. I thought it was great. You guys didn't. You guys didn't. So, I was not able to sell that idea. I still think in the long-term best interest, if you want to see your shops downtown survive, having people visit here with money in their pocket helps support the local economy. But I won't say nobody agrees with me. When I went to the first meeting of the Bel Air committee, I left the room thinking most of them agreed with me. And then they continued to meet, and then they didn't agree with me. So if you guys think a park is better, it's your community. I grew up in tourism. I have my expertise. I have my opinion. So we're headed for it being a park. I asked the town engineer to do what's called a request for proposal to demolish the building, to have that building torn down. I'll get a number, what it's going to cost to knock the building down. If we give the property, at least a portion of the property with the building, to the Community Preservation Fund, I believe they can cover the cost of tearing the building down. Because that building has asbestos in it, tearing down the building is expensive. Now, we won't get our money back that we paid to buy it, which we would have if we would have had the hotel development. We would have also gotten about $400,000 for a blight mitigation fund. So we would have actually made a nice profit, and that blight mitigation fund would have helped clean up other properties. I had also hoped that the hotel thing would provide sort of an example, a template, so that maybe some of the other old hotels that were here that had become low-income housing would go, you know what? A hotel is now viable in Hampton Bays. People want to go on vacation in Hampton Bays, and so we may have seen other similar investments. Nonetheless, you can hear it's a little frustrating to me that I didn't win on this. So we're heading for a park. We may want to keep one half of it for a park where you can do things that CPF, Community Preservation Fund, won't allow. Like you cannot have food trucks on a CPF property. You can't have craft shows or farmers markets and things like that. So, I'm working with Rick on this, and we're trying to develop a plan that maybe a portion of it will be a passive park, and another portion will be for, for other park type of uses, for community uses, I should say. On sewers, and somebody said 8 minutes. Am I limited time-wise? Okay. Okay, all right. I wasn't told, so I'll talk all night if you want. I want to leave plenty of time for questions. So, is it interesting so far? All right, good. If you're falling asleep, it's okay too. All right. So let me talk a little bit about sewers, and then I want to talk about the future of downtown. So, as Geraldine said before, too, a lot of communities now have sewers. it's sort of understood that sewers are not a bad thing. Sewers, you know, the old way we handled our waste was basically we flushed it down the toilet. It ended up in a cesspool, and it just leached into our groundwater. And our human waste contains nitrogen, a lot of nitrogen, and so it would get injected into the water table. That's just the way it would go. It would go right down to the water table. The county used to be concerned about it mostly because of, you know, human illnesses. If you had too much nitrogen, like blue baby syndrome and things like that. We learned through the years that that nitrogen moves toward the bays, and eventually it gets into the bay, and it does the same thing that any fertilizer does in your garden. It helps plant grows. It helps plant grow, so the algae thrives in that environment that's high nitrogen. And so suddenly you have brown tides and red tides and every kind of tide you can imagine. You end up closing areas for shell fishing. You end up, as algae decomposes, it sucks oxygen out of the water column, so you end up what's called hypoxic conditions, where you just don't have enough oxygen in your water column to support your fish and other aquatic life. So algae is not the enemy per se. It's the nitrogen that's making the algae go crazy. So we've been working on ways of reducing nitrogen. We give grants out now for people to change their septic systems to remove nitrogen. And when you have a center, a downtown center, where you can connect everybody up to sewage treatment, that's what sewage treatment does, right? It's not just about pathogens, it's about nitrogen. It pulls that nitrogen out, and so you can discharge clean water back into the water table. It's really important for the bay. It's really important for the bay. It also allows more economic development. So you have to make sure your zoning is compatible so that you don't end up with too much development. Okay, so we have commissioned a study trying to figure out where the best place to put a sewage treatment plant. A lot of people didn't like the suggestion that it went near the cemetery. So we have an engineering firm who's studying this issue. We do think preliminarily that the old landfill site might work. That is one of the potential locations that could work. It's quite a distance to pump it there, but it might be, although more expensive, it might be the most acceptable to the community to have it up in that location. It's not the only site that's being looked at. So it's going to take some time. I won't be here when that study is finished, but hopefully you guys will stay involved with that. You know, I'm sure you have. Thanks, Ray. I'll be thinking of you too. Okay. I have the. And congratulations, congratulations. Good. All right, hold on, Ray. Let me just finish. So, you want me to stop now? Who wants me to stop now? Okay, thank you. All right, Ray. You got voted in for vice president, but you got outvoted for it. So I want to talk about downtown because you guys are blessed with this incredible downtown in terms of you got a train station right in the heart. You don't have, well, you do have a major highway. You don't have Sunrise Highway running through it. There really has been a lack of investment in your downtown, and there isn't, other than the movies, a real cultural venue, like an anchor to your downtown. So in talking to people why they aren't investing in downtown, you know, a lot of it's restricted by what the health department will allow. You can't have the wet uses. And people, when we did these studies, everybody said, we want a vibrant downtown. We want cafes and outdoor dining. Those are wet uses. Without a sewer system, you can't do it. The county health department won't let you do it. So that's why that's so important. But then you also have to have your zoning in place. So, you know, I imagine, you know, a downtown where people don't just come passing through or don't stop for one thing, where they get out, they park their car, they get out. You know, there's, you know, some cute shops and places to go and places to sit outside, and, wide sidewalks, outdoor dining. All that is very possible. Not so much on Montauk Highway because there's really not a lot you can do with Montauk Highway. You can bury the power lines. I think that would be great. You could do some beautification, and the town's provided some grants for like awnings and storefronts. But there's an opportunity between Good Ground Park and Montauk Highway to create a street that has wide sidewalks, that has outdoor dining, that has boutique shops. And I think that that would be a real asset. And I think that would drive a lot of business into downtown, which would then support all the other stores, and all the boats would sort of lift up. So the plan that we put in place that was referred to earlier had probably too much density, too many units. So we have to bring that down. It had too many stories. Had some 3- and 4-story buildings that people don't seem to want. Now, I spent a lot of time in this room, in this spot, listening, in the listening sessions. If you remember, probably all of you were at those listening sessions. They would go on for hours, hours. I did it every Thursday for a couple months. And then I did focus groups with groups of 10, smaller groups, planning and talking about the future of Hampton Bays, and trying to come up with a collective vision. It's not an easy thing to do because there is no one vision, but trying to figure out what matched sort of what I was hearing in terms of the vibrancy. So, we are working, Rick and I and the town board, with a group called Historic Concepts, trying to develop some renderings that we can bring back to you guys to say, is this what you want? Is this, okay, did we get it right? We didn't get it right. We'll go back to the drawing board until we get it right. Collectively. So what one person wants, somebody is going to say, I love it just the way it is. Somebody's going to say, I want too much, I want a lot. And so figuring out that, that right formula is not going to be so easy. So with that, again, it's been an honor for me to serve as your town supervisor for the last 8 years. I only have a few more months to go. I'm not going to be a stranger. I love this community. I look forward to it evolving in a way that the community embraces. And I know you're going to have great elected officials that will help you create that vision. So with that, thank you, and I'll answer questions. All right. I think I had...
Should we put the microphone back there? Yeah, can you sit in?
All right. Is this amplified? Okay.
If you're going to speak, you have to come up to the microphone.
Can I get a little water? Is it possible? I will drink the Hampton Bays tap water because I have confidence in it. I know. We test it every month, so. Can we make an accommodation for Marianne because since she doesn't have to walk? Charlie, we have this on? Okay, we do.
Hi, thank you for coming. Daria Roulette. Quick question. When you talked about the sand project, and you not have an answer to this, is it possible for them to take the sand from the bay and bring it over? Because the bay is almost impossible to navigate. It's sand everywhere. There's it's like a one-lane road.
Yeah, so the dredging project does include some of those shoals that are accumulated in the mouth, that delta area. Yeah, so some of that will come out and end up on the
Because every year
beach.
there's more and more. And when is that happening? Any
About
idea?
a year and a half from now, approximately. So what the town is asked to do is onerous. We have to obtain over 100 easements from property owners. We have to survey their property. We have to appraise the easements, negotiate the easements.
To get into the bay?
We have to get permission from the oceanfront property owners. You gotta wait for this, all right? Okay. We have to get permission from the oceanfront property to allow us to place sand in front of their properties to protect their homes. It's a crazy thing. What we're doing is so helpful, but we also have to pay them to allow us to put sand in front of their properties. It's doesn't make any sense,
No.
and we have to do this for over 100 properties, and that is what's taking so long.
Okay. And also that firm that you mentioned, Creative, who you're working with for the
Historic
renderings,
Concepts.
when is that expected to?
Rick, I don't know if we have a deadline on it.
Approximate time frame?
We're working on it now.
And we'll see that how? Like, how will we see?
So I think we're going to present it in small groups, Rick, or here? Okay, so Rick is saying potentially here to the
'Cause
Civic.
I think part of what I've seen is community. I don't see communication, because even with Bel Air, I was active with Bel Air, but then I did have a conversation with Rick to get an update, but I don't think the community at large gets updates enough.
No, and
So we really don't, so we don't really see, I was actively asking, and I'm involved with Civic, but I think that's something where, like we saw in Southampton when you're doing Agawam, it's all over the news, and I get it, it's a different kind of project, but it's still all over the news, whereas here, we don't really see that. I'm going to say transparency just for lack of a better word.
Often wondered why Hampton Bays didn't have its own newspaper. I tried to encourage various publications to do that. But Southampton Press does a pretty good job of covering Hampton Bays.
I mean, I guess what I'm saying is press release from the town. Like, does the town press release an update?
Do you go to our website? We often post things to our website.
I have never seen Bel Air and such. It's just an idea where I think we kind
All
of
right.
get lost in
Yeah. Thank you,
communication.
Dara.
Thank you.
All right, so a couple of things on that. I don't want to be the truth squad day, but I could go back to the Concord Pavilion and say, your idea for the Concord Pavilion was a high-end restaurant, right? And
So, Gail, it was many
No,
things.
It took this community, all of us here, filling out surveys and but I could go. That's not why. But this was the problem.
No, I want to come back to that. Thank you.
Okay, but this was kind of why I'm so impressed that we now have a bigger group of people that are aware that we can't always take things at face value. So I have a couple of questions. The first question is about that. Create that organization you hired about a year ago to do an as is renderings of what the town would look like if everybody did a full build out in village business. And we never saw it. So again, to Daria's point, you guys have been working on this. We've all been following it. We troll looking. When was this discussed at a work session? You're almost done in a month. Has any of us even been involved in what you're working on, other than, these meetings and your listening sessions that you, by the way, kicked me out of, but that'll be a story for a different day. So, we haven't seen
Gail, if you're going to accuse me of things, I'm going to want to respond to these things.
No,
so
but
you weren't kicked out. You tried to be somebody else. You had another listening session, and then you wanted to go represent somebody else at a different listening session.
on the phone.
So be fair.
All right,
be fair.
To be fair. So the thing is, we haven't, to Darius' point, this is the first time we're hearing that you're working on something, right? So it's great that you're here and updating us, but Tommy John. So again, Darius got a very good point. The communication with the town, we need to do a better job. Liz is now the president. Let's figure out how, and she's totally aware of what we've been through for the 8 years, how we do a better job. So that's the first thing. The second thing you mentioned the old dump. Is that the transfer station, or is that a different site? Were you talking about
the transfer station is the old dump.
Okay. And the third thing was totally different issue. On Wednesday, LIPA, and I know you were very actively involved in our grid back when you were in Suffolk County. The LIPA situation, can you explain a little bit of what's going on with LIPA and PSEG and how that may or may not affect us as our rates, as our transmission? Can you give a little more information on that?
All right. So, and then what else did you mention? I'm trying to remember all the things you mentioned. So, all right, Concord. All right. So let me start with the LIPA thing. And probably Assemblyman Thiel is much closer. We're going to have a hearing at Town Hall on this LIPA commission. The effort basically we used to have LOCO as a private utility. LIPA was formed as a public utility, but it has a for-profit management entity, PSEG. We have seen terrible response after certain storms, and so they're looking at completely revamping the entire model and making it a full public utility. I don't know that that's going to happen. There's a lot of pushback from different directions, but Assemblyman Thiel is much closer to this than and I would invite him to answer because I don't want to be inaccurate. I know you have some questions about the town's efforts to be a bulk purchaser of electricity on behalf of our residents through something called community choice aggregation. And we're hoping that we can lower utility bills by several $100s a year through this program. It's not guaranteed, but we're going to be looking soon at numbers and trying to figure out whether we can deliver some cost savings on your utility bills by having the town intervene in that capacity. In terms of the Ponquag Beach Pavilion, and I mentioned this when I was in my opening remarks, that I thought it was really important to have a great beach pavilion. And in talking about different ideas there, I thought having a place where you could have a meal overlooking the ocean, that's it. Think about it. Is there any place you can go and eat look at the ocean? Name one. There are none. There are none. Miles of ocean in the town of Southampton, not one place where the public can go for dinner or go or even for lunch. A lot of other, county parks and things like that, they have places. Even Mashut has a little restaurant there. Yes, and you can have a drink. You can have it only after 6 p.m. if you want. I thought it was a good idea. You guys didn't like it. I didn't conclude it. Okay? So I can present ideas. Yes, Gail, you're right. That was part of one of my ideas. Another one of my ideas was to renovate that pavilion and expand the deck. And that happened. And that happened. So, okay? So the one thing, like me or don't like me, I do try to listen and represent this community. And I'm not a stone wall. Like, if somebody has some information that I wasn't aware of, let's talk about the battery energy storage, right? When that was presented to me, trying to respond to global warming, and global warming is real, whether you think there's a human cause or not. It's serious, okay? It's serious. We have to change the way we behave. We have to move away from fossil fuels. We do. So how do you get to wind and solar? You have to store energy. You got to, because the wind doesn't always blow and the sun doesn't always shine. You need battery energy storage. It is part of our future. And it was presented to the town board as a benign type of thing. Like your, cell phone has a battery. We put it up against our heads. We don't worry about it, right? Our cars have batteries. So when we became aware, and I thank the public for bringing it to our attention, of all the fires and all the concerns about toxic fumes and thermal runaway, we responded. We responded and we undid everything. We did a 6-month moratorium, including the proposal that had already finished its application. And if it turns out that these types of facilities are dangerous, which I think everybody here has already concluded, then we have to change the zoning and say it can't be in residential areas. As simple as that. Maybe it can't even be in commercial areas. I don't know. But again, it's 6 months. 6 months, I'm not here. So we're going to do this study. A future town board will have to, look at the results of that study and make a decision. So, we're doing the best we can. But I really wanted to say that just to illustrate the point that I'm not the kind of person who is so rigid in my opinion that I can't bend and adjust to the community. I've been doing that for years. If I don't get what I want, I don't go home and cry. Say, look, it's okay. It's your community. You live here every day. I could tell you what I think will help evolve the community in the way that you're saying you want, that will address some of your issues, help your local economy, protect your environment. But if you disagree, it's okay too. All right, Ray.
I just want you to know I have nothing but love for you.
I know you do, Ray. I know you tell me every time you see me.
That's good.
All right.
Let's go down memory lane here with you, okay?
All right, here we go.
Let's go down memory lane. No, I want to do this. 4 years, no, this is about the Bel Air Cove. Okay, 4 years ago, and the Civic, that the administration then, and the CAC, we went, Marion was there, we wanted you to buy the Bel Air Cove for community preservation funds. It would have been bought now, torn down, it wouldn't have been a loss and everything. And the only reason why it didn't get that was because you didn't want it. Now, the other thing I want to talk to you about is like the best unit is, it was pretty apparent from the beginning that this was a terrible location. And also we proved the point that these were hazardous facilities that could go bump in the night and cause a tremendous problem for everyone. And it took so long to get finally the board to pass the moratorium. And this is like my colleague Gail always says, why is it so hard to deal with the board? When I was active in the town of Oyster Bay, as soon as they saw which way the wind was blowing with the public, they went right along with it right away because they were there to serve the public. We don't get that here. We really don't. I want to talk a little bit about the downtown overlay district. Well, first of all, West Hampton Beach, they send their affluents all the way a much farther distance to the airport. That was a tremendous cost. It was $14 million to do that. When we got our plan, it was in the cemetery and defiling the park, which was only about maybe 800, less, maybe 700 feet from Main Street. It was a terrible location, but that's what we got. They got the airport, because they're a village. We got the park, and desecrating the cemetery. That's what we get. So I don't think there's a disconnect here. I don't think you understand that, the frustration we have on our part. All right? I mean, I could go on and on with these things, you know, and you know I'm accurate about it, and I could present all the evidence. I was just out, as you know, we went back head to head about it, but on last Tuesday, the notice of public hearings to consider aquatic habitat restoration, a nonprofit source of abatement to be used from the 20% community preservation fund for water quality improvement. Most of the projects were for villages. Why? You told me that we didn't put in for the grants. And then we pointed out to you that you guys are the commissioners of the water district. And we need money. They use these very expensive carbon activated filters. We also don't have our place winterized. You could have put it in for all that, but you didn't. And then you're saying, well, it's, you know, you guys have to have private, you know, the Civic should have done it. But what do you guys do for us? You guys should have done that for us. You are commissioners. We, you know, along with our property values going up by a factor of 3, our water bills have gone up by a factor of 3. And that could have been ameliorated if you guys would have put in for these grants. So, I mean, you know, it goes both ways. You know what I mean? It really does. I mean, you know, you're up here opining about all you did, but there's a lot of stuff you didn't do and a lot of stuff that you just, pardon my expression, but you were thick-headed about. And this is back 4 years ago. That thing would have been all adjudicated already, Bel Air Cove. And again, with this best unit, it should not have taken so much to get that done. All these people that gave up their whole summer to win that battle, and we still didn't win it. It was pretty obvious that everything we said, it was a bad location, and for God's sake, these things are really problematic. And I'm speaking from a fire point of view and everything else. So that's what the frustration is. I want you to know that. I mean, it's not that because we dislike you. I think you're a nice guy. I really do. I don't think you're an evil person. I think you're very good when you sleep at night. All right, so that's it. So maybe you want to, you know, comment about that.
Okay, I'd love to. Thank you, Ray. And
Nothing but love to you.
all right, thanks. Okay, so let me take a couple of those points. Let me start with that last one first, that we should have provided a water quality grant for carbon filtration for Hampton Bay. So when you buy property, anywhere in the town, you pay a transfer tax, and that it's called the Community Preservation Fund. And some of that money can go toward water quality grants. And the money you spend on water quality, it's very limited under that law. It's a state law, and says these are the things you can spend it on. We can't spend it on carbon filtration. We can spend it on water mains. We can spend it on water mains to areas that are affected by these contaminants. And that's what we did in East Quogue. We spent millions of dollars because private well users didn't have public water, and they were getting these contaminants in their well water. They couldn't drink their well water. But what Ray is asking us to do is not legal, so we couldn't do it. That's just a simple thing. I wish we could. Maybe Assemblyman Thiel can change the program so that would be something we could do. I'd love that. I would love some of the money to be able to be used for park infrastructure so we could build ball fields and bleachers and pavilions and bathrooms. But we can't do that. We can buy the land. We can't put in the infrastructure. All right. In terms of the villages getting the water quality money, so a community, look, you have this civic, right? You have this civic. You have lots of resources available to you. One of the greatest resources down the road is SOMAS, the School of Marine and Atmospheric Sciences, and Dr. Chris Gobler. You have a bay, in Shinnecock Bay. You have lots of other water bodies. Groups like Cornell Cooperative Extension that runs the Marine Center out on Tiana, if they come up with ideas, say, look, here's something you can do. Here, we would love to provide a grant, right? So the villages, yes, they do, they're on this. They go after this money all the time. And some of the areas that don't have villages, some of them do, like Bridgehampton and Watermill. They've come in for grants. You guys could be, I think, lining up for money, but you got to come up with a project, and you take advantage of the expertise, our Natural Resources Department. We can help you come up with things that will help the Bay. Now, I was able to get $1 million from the state government to study Shinnecock Bay, and we looked at even possibly creating a pipe under Dune Road that would help move water in and out so that some of the areas like Weesuck Creek or Quantock Bay or even Tiana Bay could get fresh water from the ocean, colder water, oxygenated water, and get rid of some of the higher nitrogen water, shoot it out to the ocean. So we looked at a whole bunch of different ideas for improving the water quality of Shinnecock Bay, and I'm happy to make that study available if anybody wants to see it. We looked at like 10 different alternatives that would improve water quality. The good news for Shinnecock Bay, if you've watched Dr. Gobler's State of the Bay, I think it's been like 9 years now without a brown tide event. Water quality is improving. The clam harvest has been up. Still issues with scallops, but it does look like Shinnecock Bay is improving. So that's good. And the more of those IA systems, those sanitary systems that remove nitrogen, we have grants, significant grants. If you want to convert your sanitary system, please come in and do that. And then in terms of West Hampton, just back still on Ray's thing. Well, quick on Bel Air. The trustees have a park next to Bel Air. You guys know that, right? The trustees have a piece of property between the Station Restaurant and bar and the Bel Air property. I don't know how many have ever gone to that park. It's a little nothing. I think they've leased it sometimes to the station for parking. I don't know how many people are going to use this park at Bel Air. I still, and I said it tonight, believe that the boutique hotel was better. And Ray's like, why did it take so long? Why did it take so long? And honestly, we were trying to grandfather the flow. We couldn't tear the building down. It took 3 years for the health department to recognize the flow from that hotel. And over the course of the year, I think, some people never wanted it to be anything but a park. But over, I think, the course of time, that cry for it to be a park probably grew to the point where now that's what people want. it's funny when I talk to groups sometimes and they hear actually the pros and cons, they go, oh, you know, maybe you're right. Maybe the park isn't the best thing. You know, somebody's going to have to maintain it. Somebody's going to have to insure it. Somebody's going to have to clean up the garbage, whatever it is. No tax revenues, you know, who knows? That's what you're going to get. You're going to get the park. That's what you wanted. But don't make it so simple. Don't make it so simple. Okay, this wasn't an easy decision. And honestly, if you're getting, Ray, you're getting what you want. And I don't want to thank you, honestly. I don't want a good job, Jay. But maybe once in a while when you come up, just don't interrupt me in the middle of my sentences. I'll take that.
I have a question. I'm not sure if you can answer it, but maybe some insight. It's very unnerving when you drive down Main Street and you see that it has been plowed from Main Street to the park, and you don't know what's going to happen next. I mean, is there another swatch of land that's going to be left, plowed through? This is Kyola's property, and it's not clear what he's, are we waiting for something to happen? What can you tell us about what he's doing or what's going on? You can't.
I can't. I don't know.
Whoa.
So he cleared that section. I guess he had the right to clear it.
Yeah.
It's his property. He said that he was getting rid of a lot of garbage that had been deposited there and people who were trespassing on his property. But I have no idea what his plans are. He still would like to invest a significant amount of money in developing this, downtown section between Main Street and the park. He can't do it. Right now he only has the current zoning, so I know he's looking at what he can do under current zoning. Unfortunately, current zoning isn't going to lead you to the downtown that everybody says that they want. It's going to end up with more big box store type of development. I don't think that's what you want. As I walk downtown and I go from like Tony's Asian Fusion to Scotto's, and then I hit what used to be Liggett's and now is a market, but you see that like traditional New England village development. These little stores, they're 1 and 2 story, and then suddenly you met with a giant parking lot, right? That's where things started to go wrong, where you broke your development pattern, because in the 70s zoning changed, and now that's what you get. You get the 7-Elevens and the Chase Banks and the Liggett's development. You don't have zoning that will allow that charming New England village type of development. And until we put that in place, Kyola can't do it either. Kyola can't do it. Nobody can. And so he, as the owner, is going to look at what can I do, and it's going to be the CVS kind of development, and that's unfortunate.
I really want to, can you hear me? I'm so darn short and getting shorter by the day. Can you hear me now? Okay. I really want to ask you about downtown, but I have one, maybe it's a very simplistic question to ask you about the inlet. We're talking about the beach erosion and stuff. Every time I go to the inlet and I see that jetty that goes all the way out into the ocean on the east side, trapping all kinds of wonderful sand, because we all know the sand drifts from Montauk to Coney Island. It seems to be stopping the sand. Our jetty being the west jetty, is much shorter. So, of course, we don't have a chance to grab that sand. And then our beaches here run out of sand. They become shallow, not shallow, you know what I mean. Thinner, what do we say? Narrower. Thank you. No speaking the English, okay. Anyway, is there anything we can do? It makes no sense to me. Every time I go out and see that jetty sitting all the way out there, and their beach getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and ours getting smaller and smaller, I get angry.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
So Meadow Lane with the $50 million houses has a beach. Those homes that used to be near the water are really far from the water now. That beach has grown so much, and they've had to expand that jetty because of it. So now you end up with the east jetty much longer than the west jetty. The coastline used to be just one straight line to 1938, right? And the hurricane
but, who's paying the price?
opened up, the breach. We had a breach there in 1930, which became the Shinnecock Inlet, and they stabilized it. And because the littoral drift, the migration of sand is primarily east to west,
Right.
so that jetty started capturing all the sand, and this side it started to disappear because it
Right.
was starved
That's
from
my
sand.
point.
And then they added more to the jetty, and it captured even more. And now we have nothing left. It's
Yeah, well, who do
so
we-
it's it's an engineering, a federal engineering issue. I don't
Well,
know
is this an
the
issue for
the best
Congress?
the
I mean-
best. So what they talk about is sand bypass. How do you get sand from one side to the other? And what they have resolved is that basically the sand goes into the inlet, and they remove the sand from the inlet, and they play every 3 years. So rather than some places like in Florida where they constantly move sand from one side through a sand bypass pump, we have this system where they let it build up for 3 years, then they come back and they move it. That's as good as I think we're going to get for a while.
We shorten that jetty on the east? And let Meadow Lane,
good luck.
live, yeah. No, I mean, is that something we can take
No.
up with a congressman?
Sure.
Maybe we should. Okay, now.
And by the way, that beach, although it's very low, that is an amazing beach. That Cove Beach right there at the end of Dune Road. I'm surprised more people don't go there because it's great beach.
I go there almost every day.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't walk on the
We
sand,
need more parking there.
But I have three things I want to mention. First of all, I was intimately involved in buying that park and building that park. And
Good Ground Park, yes.
And I feel snookered in a way because we had the road very far south, not so that Kiola could use it as the front yard for his apartment buildings that he'd like to build. But somewhere I have it in writing, if I can find it among my souvenirs, that 60% of the land fronting the park is supposed to be park-related businesses such as outdoor cafes,
ice cream
spot-
shops,
yeah,
toy stores,
kite
whatever.
Shops,
Buy a
things like
kite,
that.
whatever.
And I looked at one of Kiola's drawings, and it was like off on a side street, and it was two people sitting outside a restaurant on a sidewalk, and his partner, whatever his partner's name was, said, "That's an outdoor cafe." I said,
Greg
"That's
Small.
two little tables on a sidewalk."
Greg
What's the
Small,
name?
right? Yeah.
What?
Greg Small, I think, is his partner.
Oh, okay. So anyway, I don't know what we can do to enforce that intent from the very beginning, that all of that land along there, the reason we built the roadway and the parking way right there was so that right here, people during the summer with outdoor lights could have outdoor cafe, there could be a little music, you could do this, you could do that. Instead, it seems like the whole thing's been thwarted, and it's clear Kiola, I think, has dreams of not only turning it into a Montauk Highway bypass, our road in the park, but also to build things that would benefit his businesses that aren't park related. So I'd like you to address that if possible.
Sure.
Okay.
So, and I think the buildings along the park, they do need to be park related uses, so
Yes,
that
but
when
what
you're
can
in
we
the
do to
park
enforce
and
that?
right. It could be little cafes, microbrewery, whatever
We
it
all
might
agreed
be.
on it. We
Or-
did those
or
charrettes,
oyster bar, whatever. It's not-
8 million things.
Yeah.
And everybody agreed that was the deal. I mean,
Right,
it
and
was-
I don't think that you should have tall buildings there either. I think they should be relatively, smaller, not looming over the park.
Yeah, but what do we do to get
so-
them? Like, do we
so
offer tax
we're, I'm
abatements to
working.
people to build outdoor cafes?
We're working together. We have the town board. We want to do this as a community-driven process, not as a developer-driven process. So at some point, we collectively figure out what we like as a community. Now, Kiola may say, "I'm not going to build that. I'm no interest in that. It's going to cost me a fortune. I'll make no money. They'll all be sitting empty. I'm out."
But
right?
my recollection, it wasn't a pipe dream that we would like it to be 60%. It was that 60% of the development on that northern boundary, which is the southern boundary of the park, would be park-related businesses. Now, unfortunately, I don't know what we put in place, and I don't remember, to see that became reality. I don't know whether it's
There are
tax
mechanisms
abatements.
to
We
do
can
this.
tax abatements, can't we?
There's a
to
number of
address-
things we can do. So we
Yeah.
could create some sort of overlay and say, like what we used to have with the PDDs. I know it's a dirty word now, but the Planned Development District. You say, here's the plan. You could either do zoning, the current zoning, or you can do this plan. Here's this plan. This is exactly what you're going to have to build. This is what it's going to look like. So we can dictate to a great degree if you're going to have a use that is far more economically beneficial than what you'd get under current zoning. You have to meet the community's conditions. And maybe that does involve things like a cultural venue of some sort.
And I also think, Jay, what's happened in the past, and I get that bad feeling about Kyola and everything, we seem to be presented with something almost when it's a fait accompli. And then when you make any, we don't like that, they say, we've worked on this for 5 years.
Well, when I was at that...
Meantime, no one's ever talked to us.
When Mr. Kyola presented his renderings at the press sessions, there was a lot of positive response. People like, oh, we'd love that. We'd love that. So I think part of this has been a lack of communication. We don't know his vision. And I think it has to be laid out in great details.
I've been around, maybe a little too long, but doing this kind of stuff. But every developer, anything they ever drew, watercolor, geraniums, trees that look like they're from the Brooklyn Botanical Gardens, everything always looks wonderful. And then the reality of what they do is nowhere near there. You have to be totally naive or, to believe it. So the plans he even presented at that thing, was people in straw hats and lovely white dresses sitting at a sidewalk cafe with beautiful red geraniums. We're not going to get that, you have to be real. Okay, you got my point, and I think...
I understand it.
And you mentioned...
But my point, too, is we can say what we want, and he could say pound salt. I'm not doing that. So there may have to be a dialogue.
Gail is the master here on the zoning, not me, so I'm sure maybe we
but there may have to be some give and take at some point.
I have two other questions, two other things. One is just a comment on your comment. You said we don't have an anchor downtown. We have the park. We have 34 acres, and granted, we haven't developed it fully, and it never was meant to be developed to be Disneyland North. But,
no, it's true.
I
agree with you.
But the thing is, our anchor could definitely be the park, especially if we have park-related businesses along the park. It would draw in so many people walking from Main Street. Okay, so that's one.
Can I just add on that? If we had, because the park isn't, we don't have concerts all year round, and we want winter business too. So things like an outdoor ice skating rink in that vicinity might also help in the wintertime.
Yes, well, actually, Jay, when it was being developed, there's a big bowl in the land back behind the arena. And at the time, it was stated it would be an ideal place for, what are those kids use in the winter, those round, what we used to use sleds, whatever they are.
Sledding,
we used to use sleds. Now they
we used to say sleigh riding, but
the idea
that's a Long Island
thing. The bowl would be perfect for winter sports, and it's behind the stage. So that's another thing that could be developed. But I had something else, just one question. Historic concepts. It seems to me, I might be wrong, that when I spoke to Kyola's partner, whose name I forget already.
Greg Small.
Okay, we all know who he is except me. He mentioned that they were using historic concepts. I swear he used that name. So who's using historic concepts?
We are. No, he's using
in unison with him? Are we in cohorts?
No, he's using a group. Do you remember UA or something?
I swear
they are not working for Mr. Kyola at all.
Okay, well, anyway, that's, if you would show, and I think people should be aware of that.
Yeah, that would be a conflict. No, they're working only for us.
People working on the park are working independently.
Mr. Kyola wanted us to use his consultant. We did not. He wanted us to use the same group because they're supposed to be pretty good. We wanted our own people.
Yeah, well, thank you. Okay, next.
All right, thank you, Mariam.
Thank you, Jay.
Come over here. You have to sit here. We're at the usual thing. We have 4 minutes left. Back a few questions that you were talking about water. About getting fresh water on Dune Road and solving that issue, because I know that there was a line under the Shinnecock that got broken and they had no water at Oakland's. Have you ever been to Aruba?
Yes.
Well, Aruba has absolutely no natural water of its own. Last year I got a tour. I was curious. I said, where's this water coming from? And I got a tour of what they have as a facility. 100% of their drinking water is generated from the salt water in the ocean with a steam system. I don't know the technical name of that steam system,
Reverse
but we've got
osmosis.
plenty, it's a wavy area. We've got plenty of salt water that if who's doing that? The Cornell Extension? I don't know if they have even thought of doing that.
So
And it's free.
we do not suffer from a lack of water. That's a misconception.
Right.
We have tons of water in our aquifer, tons of water that, we have to have the mechanics to pull it out and deliver it to people. But it's not a lack of water. So Aruba doesn't have fresh drinking water supply. We do, way more than ample. We just have to make sure we don't contaminate it by the things that we do on the land. But there's, we may have to put in an additional well or two in the future to meet future growth. But the water is there. There's
Yeah, but
there's
we don't
plenty of
have
water.
it on Dune Road. Like, you can't drill there because you're in, the water
No,
table is
right,
salt
and
water.
that's why we have this pipe underneath the bay. But
just a
those
thought.
reverse osmosis type of systems are extremely costly, and that would not be a viable solution for us, I don't believe, when we have pristine drinking water resources right beneath our feet. Not right here in this spot.
I'm sure we do.
But,
Anyway.
but further north, we do. No, unfortunately, we have contamination in this area.
Hi, Jay. Real quick, you say pump the sewage up to North Sea. Is that what we're looking at, like by the SYS? Is that what you're talking
No,
about?
no.
You said
So-
the old dump. I don't
So
know.
no. So what I was talking about, and thank you for bringing this subject up, because Ray also mentioned West Hampton, which pumps to the airport at Grabowski Airport. And first of all, West Hampton looked at a ton of. This didn't happen overnight in West Hampton. It took years and years, and they looked at many different alternatives. But Grabowski Airport already had a sewage treatment plant, right? Our transfer station doesn't have a sewage treatment plant. So not only you have to get the water to there, it's on Jackson Avenue, right? You know where I'm talking about, right? Jackson Avenue, where the police headquarters are.
The recycling center.
Yeah, the recycling center. So you have to get the water there. So, and it's, it's not, you can't have it gravity fed, right? So you're gonna have to pump it. You're gonna have these pumping stations that move the sewage from one spot to another till you get there. And then you also have to build the sewage treatment plant. So West Hampton's was, I forget what they, $14 million, $16 million. That was with the plant already there.
They had the capacity
Right.
already.
Yeah, they had to expand it a little bit. Yeah, and they have to expand it again, I believe. But yeah.
Okay, so my second question. You read in the papers about the company who's doing all the wind power. It begins with an
Ørsted?
O,
Ørsted.
Danish company,
Yeah.
and they're in trouble and they're abandoning projects. Is that our wind power company, and is our wind power project in jeopardy at this point?
Well, it's not ours, right? So that wind power is off of Block Island, and it's coming in two locations through offshore cables. One is in Wainscott in the town of East Hampton, and then in Brookhaven. It's not coming into Hampton Bays at all. So
Southampton.
it's
Aren't we putting a big wind farm out in the ocean somewhere?
no. The state's looking at other areas for wind farm development, but none off our shore. And I fought really hard to actually keep it off our shore, unless they were going to go out far enough that we wouldn't see it. Because as much as I support wind power, I don't like the industrialization of the horizon. I want to be able to go to the beach and be able to see forever, and not see these spinning blades. But that's a personal preference. But
Last question, and a little more pedestrian. I heard there's going to be new pickleball courts in Red Creek. Is that going on now? Somebody told me there would be.
we have any pickleball players in the audience? All right, we got one. So yes, I think we're building 8 new courts at Red Creek. We're doing a lot of improvements to Red Creek Park. We're working on the new skate park. Rick is liaison to the Parks Department. Do you know when? I know we have the money that we've put in place for. I know we're doing some work on the parking lot. We're doing some work on the skate park, maybe the basketball courts, and we're doing something where I guess right now the pickleball is in the old ice or the hockey rink, right? I think we're getting 8 dedicated courts. Rick, do you know? Thanks.
Tonight's his night off and you're making him work.
No, so the Red Creek Park will actually be done in 3 phases. The first phase will have the pickleball courts and some other renovations. The second one will be the skate park. We're getting rid of the old skate park, which is no longer in vogue. It's very unsafe. We're going to more of a cityscape. It'll be closer to the road. We'll be adding more parking. And then phase 3 will be the basketball courts and the basic infrastructure, the parking lots, the cobblestone, and so on. So you should see the pickleball courts pretty soon. That should be the first thing. 8 in total, so the tennis courts will be ripped up. When the tennis courts were put in 30 years ago, it was basically just asphalt. There was no drainage. There was nothing underneath. So they're taking that all out. There'll be 4 tennis courts and 8 pickleball courts. So it'll be a nice setup.
All right. Yeah. All right. So it is 9 o'clock. We'll take one last question, and then I'm not running away. Okay. If you guys have questions, I'll stick around and answer your questions personally. Well, we can take them in the parking lot. All right. So go ahead. Last question.
My name's Leo Solm. I've been in Hampton Bay since 1981.
I know that.
First, Jay, you did a remarkable job.
Thank you.
If you were running again, you'd probably win.
Thank you.
And we thank you for what you've done, and we're going to ask what the next person is going to do tomorrow. But a couple of things that have not come up here, and they may be sensitive topics, but someone kind of just whispered in my ear, and she's 100% correct. What is the town, what is Hampton Bays doing about all of this, all of these people living in the woods? I walk through a lot of woods in Hampton Bays, and I no longer walk in many sections because of the horrible conditions of what I see. People living in the woods with tents, and they're destroying the property. There's garbage, there's clothes hanging. It's scary. And I could list 3 or 4 locations that I have been in the last year, and nothing's been done. The only thing I have seen is by one of the exits off of 27 and going Hampton Bays North, the state came in and they cleared a section of land. But a couple of years ago, I was in the parking lot of Macy's, and where all those closing stations are, if you walk back there, and it's just deplorable. And there were several politicians who were putting up there, handing out their signs, who was running for office, who was running for town council, who was running for this. And I went up to a couple of them and I asked, what are you going to do what's going on right there? And not one person took ownership of it and knew how to address it. And that problem still exists. And you can call the town police. They come and they may go in. I don't know what they do, but the point is it's still going on. So that's one issue that I hope that the board is aware of and passes on to the next supervisor and address, because when you come into Hampton Bays now, a lot of these people are even begging. And I don't know if these are people coming from the city, but it's getting disgusting, and people are afraid to come here. So that's one issue that you won't be able to address, but needs to be addressed and followed up. And the other comment that I'll make is, you and I spoke a few years ago. I don't know if you remember. We had a Zoom. Well, actually, it wasn't even a Zoom meeting. It was a phone call. It was during COVID. And I gave you a bunch of ideas of how the town of Southampton has to work on lowering our taxes. And you made a comment about, in your 8 years, you've reduced taxes by 10%. I think you may have said that.
Tax rate, yeah.
Yeah, but it was that.
Well,
that's
actual dollars too, as well.
That's only a small portion of what we pay on our tax bill. If you look at your tax bill.
No, that's what I was talking. That 10% reduction is in the overall tax rate. That includes the schools and everything else.
Well, my taxes have gone from $4,000 a year to $15,000 a year in over 10 years.
Did you did you add on to your house?
Yeah, but it's gone up since then. It's gone up after I've done all the work. So my taxes are going nowhere but up and up, admittedly, the last few years. So that, to me, is a bigger issue that no one's even talking about, what we have to do. And Hampton Bays has the highest tax rate of all the towns. And I've heard from others, I hear from you, that's because we're not allowing development. We're not bringing in more businesses. We're not going to allow CPF to buy more land, because when CPF buys land, it offsets the tax base, so we don't get tax revenue. And I agree with you there. I think we should let some massive development go on in Hampton Bays. Maybe not the 4-story buildings, but we need the tax revenue.
Yep.
And but my tax rate may have gone down, but my taxes went up. So I don't believe in what you're saying. Because there's a small portion, when you and I spoke, that we pay towards Southampton, and that may have gone down. But what I pay in school taxes, what I pay in the police, what I pay for the fire department, and the police and fire department deserve every penny they get for what they do for us. But the school taxes have continually gone up. You have no control over that. I understand that.
And that's, but that's not actually true either. The school tax rate's actually gone down some, too.
My tax rate may go down, but my taxes, what I lay out of my pocket, go up. So that's what I want to just end with saying.
All right, so let me take on both those issues. Let me take those both on. I'll try to do this quick. And Lee, I invite you, like, we'll sit down and I can easily pull up those records and we can look and see what's going on there. And look, if you look at the areas that have the lowest taxes, property taxes, it's the ones that have the most summer homes, right? So Amagansett, Sagaponack, hold on, right? So you are starting to see people building summer homes in Hampton Bays and taking these, what used to be a $500,000 property and doing major build outs, and they're coming on the tax rolls at, 10 times that in some cases. And so the school's going to collect what the school needs to run the school. Each property is a slice in that pie. When one gets a lot bigger, it compresses some of the others. And so that's why things, like more summer homes or tax ratables can help reduce your taxes. Now, when I look at the numbers too, and if you adjust it for inflation, now over the 8 years I've been here, inflation is like 28% cumulative inflation from, over those past 8 years. That's a big factor too. So you do have to adjust it for the dollar, I think, in only fairness. So you would expect it to go up, but has it gone up beyond the rate of inflation? And I bet you it has not. But if you've added a pool and an addition, those are things that, obviously your taxes are going to go up because you're now getting a bigger slice of the pie. So that was one of the issues on taxes. On the terms of the homelessness, a tough issue, particularly tough one for me, and it's not just Hampton Bays. Even Southampton Village, there's large homeless encampments. There are people who are panhandling there too. You do have a lot of woods here. What Kiola did, maybe that was part of what his thinking was, to open it up so that people wouldn't, try to sleep in the woods. I'm a compassionate person. Nobody should be homeless. Nobody should not have a roof over their head. We have programs like Maureen's Haven. The county has the Department of Social Services. There are homeless shelters. A lot of people don't want to go to those homeless shelters. I do believe that when you increase or improve your local economy and you start to thrive and there's more jobs and more money going around, more work for people, homelessness will disappear. I'm concerned about this country and that it's the costs of living are going up faster than wages, and a lot of the governmental programs that were helping people are gone, and you're going to see more homelessness, unfortunately, before we see less. But it is part of my thinking in terms of Hampton Bays is when you improve your local economy, you will help address some of those other issues like homelessness. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Excuse me. One thing, I believe I heard it said that lifeguard pavilion on Dune Road is been revamped. For a number of years now, it is not totally finished, and it has been surrounded by a cyclone fence. I would love all of us to put our heads together and find a viable use of that building.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. Hello? Hello? Hello, everybody? Thank you. I just want... Hello? All right, the next meeting, the next membership meeting is our debate night, where the candidates who are running for the town board and trustees are going to debate, and that is October 30th. October 30th. Thank you, everyone, for coming, and thank you for your